The all-new Yamacrawl fills a void not only in the Yamamoto lineup, but in the entire fishing industry as well. The most impactful attribute of the Yamacrawl, and what really sets it apart, is that it's constructed from our new Mega Floater formula. This is the same formula that we use when creating the popular Ned Senko and hot new Slinko. This formula allows for a soft feel and a bait that floats. This formula allows you to rig the Yamacrawl countless ways, and it will stand up when it hits the bottom and mimic the natural defense posture of a crawfish. These same properties also make the Yamacrawl the best football jig trailer ever. The claws float and allow you to move the bait at super slow speeds, slower than any other crawl out there, and still get the desired kicking action. Finally, and maybe the most importantly, when you stop your jig, the claws will float up and seal the deal on any fish within eyeshot. Available in 20 fish-catching colors and comes 6 per pack in Yamamoto's new clamshell packaging. The all-new Yamacrawl is pro-tested, nature-inspired, and fish-approved. To learn more about the new Yamacrawl, visit us at baits.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Crispin Powley here with Yamamoto Baits. I got my main man, Cody Meyer, here, but not really here. He's on the other side of the country from me. How's life in Idaho today, Cody?
Crispin, it is great, man. Hey, first of all, happy to be on here tonight. We had snow this morning. So in Idaho, we had some snow, no fishing right now. But, man, everything is good. Just excited to be here. And I cannot believe it's already December, and it seems like this off season's gone by really quick. And then in another month, I'm going to be fishing, out in California, doing some pro-ams, and then getting ready for another season on tour, man. Just goes by so quick.
Man, time flies. And what's funny is you judge how fast time flies by how soon you're getting back into tournament mode. And I do it all by projects, like this Yamacrawl. Like just the other day, we started messing with it. Now we're launching it, and we're on to the next one. And so my clock and your clock are gauged by different metrics, right?
Yeah, and for me, it's actually a little stressful because when I leave my house in Idaho, California years ago, everything that I own that I think I'm going to need throughout the season, I pack in my truck. So, like right now, I'm starting to stress out going, okay, do we have this in order? Do we got enough of these? Do we got this? And I want to start stocking up and getting everything ready, really be organized, and just make sure I don't forget anything. Because there's always that one thing, right, that I show up to the first term and I'm like, where's this or where's that? And you can go buy it, thankfully. But it's a great time of the year. I love having time off. But, yeah, that's how I judge it for sure. And it's what we look forward to, though. It's like I say, it's cold right now, but I'm looking forward to getting back in the swing of things and catching some fish, man.
Sure. I live in a part of the country where we fish year round, right? And I'm in between boats right now. My new boat's getting rigged. I'm like, every day, I'm like, hey, man, we close, because I love wintertime fishing. I love Kentucky Lake better in the winter than any other time of year now. Middle Tennessee, Dale Hollow, Center Hill. Man, I love fishing this time of year. And I guess you hit a point now, right, where you get ice and you get cold, right?
Yeah. So when I was in California, it was the same thing. You had Clear Lake and the Delta would slow down, but you have the spotted bass fisheries that you can go and you can catch them every single day. It doesn't matter what the weather. But now in Idaho, like I say, this morning I woke up with snow. There's definitely some ice. We got some temps coming in the teens. I saw a buddy of mine, Brandon Polnick. He had like 2 feet of snow at his house. So it makes fishing a little bit tougher. But one thing I look forward to every year is the winter fishing in Northern California. Some of the pro-ams and stuff, seeing some of my old friends. But that'll be fun. But, yeah, you live in a great part of the world where fishing is good. And I heard Kentucky Lake's coming back too. So that's exciting.
It is exciting. I've always said Kentucky Lake plays a huge role in why I live where I do. It's like family to me, man. I grew up, I cut my teeth here. I've always kind of felt real in tune with this lake, and it's been pretty morbid the last few years, but it seems like in the cooler water months, you get some glimpses of what used to be or what could be to come. Right. And they had a smallmouth beat down on the lake this past weekend, like a bunch of big ones, and the smallmouth fishing's really made a giant resurgence like it did in the early 2000s.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's so funny. That was one of my favorite lakes to fish. When I was on the FLW tour, every time we'd go there, I'd love seeing that. And it was always around the first week of June, doing the whole ledge fishing thing. And I just remember loving that. And then it was around 16, 17. I'm like, man, I guess I just didn't find them. And then shortly after that, we saw what happened with the carp. So, thank God they got a handle on that. We can hopefully have some tournaments there again, because that will be awesome.
Yeah, a matter of fact, I think they are having a Toyota series here again this year after a couple years away. Yeah, I told myself that several days, drove home and went, man, they just don't get on my stuff like they used to, He just didn't get on anybody's stuff. So,
yeah.
But man, it's, and what I didn't really think this through, but what a kind of a cool segue talking about Kentucky Lake, where you dragging a jig is such a big deal in the offshore stuff, to kind of talk about this new bait that we kind of made this event happen to kind of, we launched it this morning. So it's out there. It's not the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, but I wanted to take this opportunity. You've had them, you've got to play with them. Wanted this opportunity to bring you in and let's talk Yama Crawl. Let's talk, first impressions, what you believe makes it good, better, best, whatever. And man, let's let the people chime in. My Alexa thinks I'm talking to her. Alexa, stop.
Alexa, do you like the Yama Crawl?
But anyway, man, I mean, you've had these a little while. You've got to play with them. You obviously are intimate with a cross style bait. Yamamoto's had several in their line throughout the years.
Yes.
This one's a little different than anything that's currently in the lineup. Tell us rather. I mean, what does this Yama Crawl represent to you?
Yeah. So for one, I am like the biggest bait tinker. I'll get out in the garage when I get a sample or something, a pack from Yamamoto. I'll open it up and lay it all out on the workbench, and then, okay, how are we going to rig this? How did Crispin design this, or what's the thought process behind this? And when I got this dude here, I was so excited. We had talked for, 6 months ago or longer that this was a major need for Yamamoto baits. This was something that we didn't have. This is a major need for all fishermen. I've yet to go to a place in the country. I've done this for 15 years full time, but fished my whole life since I was 5. I've yet to go to a place where bass do not eat crawdad. So this is going to be that crawdad imitation style bait, extremely versatile bait. Like I say, anywhere you're fishing, they're going to eat crawdad. So what I noticed right off the bat, the first thing I had a swim jig. I threw it out in my pond. I wound this thing around, and I saw amazing action. You're going to have those pinchers on there. And Crispin, you said it best. It's more of a tighter action when this thing is working. But I also thought jig trailer. You just mentioned it with Kentucky Lake, or sight fishing, Texas rig, flipping bushes or flipping trees, or shaky head on rocks. But what I've noticed, the most important thing is the material that this thing's made out of. Okay, so this thing floats so well, and I'm so glad you did that, because a lot of craw baits, I mean, there's hundreds of craw baits out there, but you'll flip them out there and then just lay on the bottom like that. So a natural crawdad's not going to just literally lay on the bottom. It's going to be scared for its life. Its claws are going to be up. It's going to try to defend itself, and that's what the Yama Crawl does. When you flip it out there, say a Texas rig, it's going to stand straight up. The claws are going to be looking up to the bass. And so immediately that bass is going to come down and think it's real. And then the material the bait's made out of, when you flip it in there, I've noticed that the slightest movement of the line and that thing has action. And that is so cool. You brought this up as well, but when you're fishing a cross style bait like this, other baits like this, you got to pop the rod pretty hard to have that thing have the action that you desire. So with this, you barely have to move it. You could just barely move it or pull it, and the claws are going to have action. Something that comes to mind is I watched the Bassmaster Elite when Drew Cook won that tournament. And I don't know what bait he was throwing, but remember how violently he was shaking that rod tip to get that bait to move. And a thought is, was that bait, did you do that? Because that was an amazing tournament. But was that bait originally just going to sit on the bottom, or was that a floating bait? I don't know what it was. But with the Yamacraw, that bait's going to be up all the time. And you barely have to shake that, and that thing would have crazy tons of action. And so that's what I observed just throwing it in the pond, seeing this thing. Absolutely a must have. This is something that I'm going to have perfect size and Yamamoto colors. That's one thing, being from the West Coast, we like to say it like the Gucci stuff, right? Like you want that JDM, the best stuff. Yamamoto has always been a staple out here in the West Coast in those really clear water lakes. And that's important because if fish can see it in clear water, you're going to match the hatch really well. Yamamoto has always been the king of the colors. The green pumpkin's a green pumpkin, the black and blue, whatever it is. And so I think we said we had 20 colors. We nailed it in this thing. And even the packaging, I'm sure you had some input on this, but I love this, man. I love how when this thing's riding around in my truck for 12 months of the year, I'm going to pull one out. It's not going to be bent because
it's perfect every time.
Yeah, if one claw was like this here, I'd probably have to throw this thing away. So I'm glad it is like that. But what a bait, man. What a bait. And I love what Yamamoto's doing. They're listening to fishermen, and they're making stuff that we all want in that style. And I mean, what a great idea to make this in that super high float and that mega float material to have this thing come up and not just lay on the bottom like so many other baits.
Yeah, when I first got here, it's hard to believe. You talking about how we were talking a minute ago about how fast time goes. I've been here a year now.
Yeah.
And God, it doesn't seem like it was yesterday, but one of the first things I did, my background's pretty heavy in product development, and no matter what my role is, product development's my favorite part of fishing tackle, period. I do a lot of sales, a lot on the business side, but product development's where my heart is. And what I've learned over the years is, man, you've got a lot of cumulative knowledge in a pro staff. We've got an incredible pro staff here. I mean, and guys from all different parts of the country, all different kind of strengths, and one of the first things I did was kind of reach out to everybody and go, hey, what are we missing? What do we not make that you need? Right. Like we had that conversation, and, is there something that someone else makes that you're forced to use because Yamamoto doesn't make it? And the top of everybody's list, the number one thing time and time again was a crawl that has a lot of action, a jig trailer, a flipping crawl, whatever. And so we set out to work on it. And, I've heard it. I've heard it for 20 years now. Like a crawl is a crawl is a crawl, right? Like I can pick up any bait on the market and go, well, that's similar to so-and-so. I guarantee I can. I mean, the thing is, if it didn't look like a crawl, we wouldn't call it a Yamacraw. We'd call it something else. It looks like a crawl, right?
Yeah, so, it's not a Yama bluegill.
No, right. And I made the joke earlier today, like, maybe we should all quit making worms after Nick Cream came out with the rubber worm, but it's not how it works. We're always like, I've got 20 of the best anglers on earth counting on Yamamoto to give them the tools to win. Well, this is another tool. And,
absolutely.
And a couple of things come to mind to me, Cody, with this Yamacraw. One, as you said, the colors. Like Yamamoto, my entire life, regardless of, back when I was fishing a lot or working for another company or whatever, like there was no doubt that Yamamoto colors were just right here. They were just this notch higher than everybody else. And also, to kind of piggyback off that, Yamamoto's always been known for the quality of the plastic, the material. I mean, dude, I still get death threats. If y'all change the Cinco material, I'll burn your house down or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
literally, I had somebody message me that today. Like, you better never change the Cinco material. Why? Because it's perfect. You
Yeah.
can't make it better. And the only thing you could do to mess it up would be to change it. And
Yep.
we put that same amount of care, the same amount of testing into this bait. And it's not like, okay, this formula is good, we'll shoot the craw in this. Like, everything has its own little perfect recipe, right? And this craw is no different. That mega floater formula, we use it in the Slinko. We use it in the 5-inch shed shape. We use it in the Ned Cinco, but it's a different formulation for the craw because it's like I said, it's not one size fits all. And what we really wanted, I mean, man, I don't even know how I could follow what you said because you hit most of the high points, but I'm an old jig dragger. Man, I grew up dragging the jig around out here on these bars and field beds and, ledges and stuff. And I've had the good fortune. I saw my buddy Kim Stricker was on here a minute ago. Had the good fortune of working with him for a lot of my career and get to actually see like a fisheye view of a bait. And man, a lot of stuff when you're not moving it, it's not doing anything. It's just kind of dormant, and this thing, like when you barely drag it, like if you're dragging through a sweet little juicy rough spot and you don't want to rush through it, you want to kind of milk it because you believe there's something there. And I mean, this thing's still moving, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter how slow you pull it. And when you stop it, you pull it up. Can't tell you, you know this better than I do. You do this for a living. I just build stuff and sell it. But how many times you pull a jig up to something and it kind of sort of hangs up, and that split second, either you pop it loose or right before you do, bam, one gets it. Well, when you pull to something and it binds up, the second you quit moving it, those claws are just going to float up. And I've watched Glenn Lau, like Big Mouth Forever, and I've watched all the Kim Stricker stuff over the years. Every time a bass gets near a crawfish, that's what it does. Like it's got to be, I'm psychoanalyzing a bass now, but it's got to be like a trigger to them, right? Like every time they approach a crawfish, and this bait's going to do it.
Yeah, you think about that. It's so smart. And you're one of the brilliant minds in making this stuff. I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I love to get in a shop and just like look at all the stuff and tinker with stuff. But you're so right. Like you think about a bass, they do this every day for a living, right? To survive. They have to eat to survive. So a thought was in my mind when I was a young kid and you'd have like a bluegill, right? And 10 years old and you catch a little live bluegill and throw it out there, that thing's going crazy and a bass cannot resist that and they come up and eat it. But the second that thing died, like maybe you caught one or it died, and this is probably a bad thing, talking about live bait, but this was 30 years ago. So
no, man, look, everything we do here is to really mimic that, right? So I think it's perfectly great analogy. So
yeah, the second that bluegill died and you flipped it out there, the bass would swim up and look at it, but they would never eat it. So it's the same thing with the crawdad. That sucker lays flat on the bottom and it's dead. Bass is like, I'm good. But you stop that bait and it comes up like, hey, I am a crawdad. Yeah. I'm gonna prepare to try to save my life here. A bass is gonna be way more interested. And I've seen, Kim stuff, the hook and look stuff, and you're right. Like, it really gets you a different perspective when you see that stuff. And it makes you think about, like, it's not just pulled out of the pack, flip it out there. Like, how am I going to make this thing the best? And you did such a great job of making this thing float. And like you say, the Cinco, that thing has so much salt in it. That's how you get that action to go down. That's why it's one of the best baits ever made. And if we put that salt in this bait, it's going to be less durable, and it's going to go down to the bottom and it's not going to move. That salt's required in that Cinco to have that action. It'll never change, like you said, and that's why it gets bit. But like I say, you put it in here, it's going to go straight to the bottom. It's going to have action going down or when you really pop it. But with this formula, this is so cool, like I say, because you barely touch this thing and you're going to have action. And that's a big deal. And think about, like, right now, I remember reading stuff like on Denny Brauer and stuff when I was a kid. dead sticking in the winter where you'd flip out. And I always thought, like, there's no way, right? They'll actually work. And fish come up and they see it and they look for a while and they finally bite it. This would be a great bait to dead stick or to flip in a mat and just sit there and let it sit there on the bottom and a fish can come up and bite it. So really, really cool, man.
Like you said, like the slightest line movement activates it, but man, any current in the water is going to give it a real natural look and movement, you know, that's going to be very much like everything. You know, one of the things that you can do is really over move something at times.
Yeah.
And then like we're talking about things that don't have enough action, you can under move it, right? Where it just looks like blah, it's dead. But you know, this thing, there's going to be times like I saw somebody put on here. I can't wait to see it on a shaky head. You throw that dude out there on a shaky head, man, and it just stands up and just kind of moves around real natural. I mean, it's going to be dumb good on a stand-up head.
Yes, and you can cut this thing down. There's little ribs here, and you can, make it. It's 4-inch, like I say, but you can make it shorter for a football head, or maybe swim a jig or little shaky head. But I mean, this thing looks really good, and there's more action or more detail to it too. You can see the little side here, and I was looking at this. I don't know if it'll show really well, but how it kind of steps down, so that water kind of comes down is probably going to create some more movement. Hey, and Crispin, I know I'm partial to Tackle Warehouse here, but they're in stock right now. So they just got in stock.
Actually, I think they're being shipped this week, but they are for sale right now.
So, yeah. I mean, by next week sometime,
yep,
you could be flipping this thing around. So it is cool though, but a lot of thought you could see went into this bait. But the plastic, I think you guys hit a home run, and Yamamoto, the colors, but the plastic, like I said again, guys, this is not the same as what the Senko is going to be. This is not the same as an Ica. This is floating material. So you flip this thing out on a little Texas rig, whatever it might be. It's literally going to come up. It's going to float. I know I've said that, but it's so important because it's what a crawdad does. And the whole thing.
It just crossed my mind, Cody, but how good would this be on a free rig?
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Because the free rig, guys, you have this little weight, and when you pull the bait, it's going to come towards the weight. So when you release it, it's going to kind of slowly stand up, and then you start shaking it. It's going to be like a crawdad trying to get away, going back down to the weight as you're popping it through. So, the free rig, I fished the little 4-inch Nico Fat on one of the Tackle Warehouse vlogs, and I was with some guys from Japan. This year, the free rig's been out for years in Japan. I'm always so interested in what some of the Japanese anglers are doing because they catch bass in the toughest conditions. So after Lake Oneida, I had some guys from Daiwa come out, and I got in the boat with them. One of them is Koya Fujita. He made the elites. The guy was amazing. And he threw the free rig, and he sat behind me and a couple guys from Daiwa and smoked me. And I'm like, okay, show me this thing. Teach me. So this would be a killer bait for that, just because the action, like you say, it's going to look so realistic. But, I mean, I don't know, man. It'd be hard to beat this thing, for sure. Like say there's hundreds of craws out there. They're all different. But, this one to me is, you guys nailed it. I mean, that is something, just the floating material alone to have that thing come up. Like even you see in the video when the promo video for this bait, you see that crawdad in the grass kind of go like when the camera's getting close, like, wait a minute, let me stop here. And for it to do that, that's very natural.
Yeah. I mean, and there's, like you said, 1,000 different craws out there. They all have their own little strength or their own little niche. And that's why, look, I'm going to be as transparent as anybody can be. I will always have stuff in my boat that I may not talk about because I need it for that one little instance because it does this one thing really good.
Yeah.
This thing is just it's going to take the place of a lot of things for me But I mean, a bed fishing bait, it's going to be the dumbest bed fishing bait ever.
Ever. I know. And I saw some of the colors too, chartreuse, stuff like that, and the green pumpkins. I mean, yeah.
We did it in Sight Flash, which is our very popular Zaco color that's white with the clear and sparkles.
Yes.
Like, it's going to be a killer sight fishing bait. And I see a lot of guys on here talking about this too. We will come out with different sizes of it. This was the one that we felt like cumulatively, with input from everybody, kind of covered the most bases right out of the gate.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that, like a smaller, bigger, whatever it might be. But yeah, this is the standard. This is the size. Like, this is what you're going to Texas rig and flip into a tree, a bush, lay down. I mean, perfect. And yeah, even smaller for more finesse type stuff. But I'm excited. I know when I got it, it wasn't 5 minutes and that thing was in the water. I was like, okay, let's see this thing, because when you're going to see this thing on the shelf or you go online, I mean, it's definitely going to catch your eye. And then when you actually see it in the water, and I really feel like, Crispin, you put so much knowledge input into this bait, and you're like, okay, how do we make this thing separate itself from other craws? And that floating material, the Yamamoto color process, the whole thing, that whole package of this. And, the craws, it's a tighter vibration, like say going down, makes a big difference, and that's going to, you're going to see when you flip this thing or you swim it on a swim jig, free rig, whatever it might be, Carolina rig, you're going to see how cool this thing is. And it's going to get you guys a lot of bites. I mean, it's going to be something for me that, like you say, no matter where you go, there's going to be bass eating crawdads. So it's going to be something for me that I'm always going to have, rigged up in a variety of ways, because, hey, let's face it, big ones eat crawdads. This is going to be a great way to, jig trailer, Kentucky Lake. Remember the good old days, throwing it out and having that thing sink, pop it up, and get destroyed. I mean, that's going to be a big.
I can feel it. I can feel it in my shoulder just when you describe it. But
yeah, that's when you feel in your.
I want to touch on this real quick, like what we designed this thing, and man, we've got. I mean, you keep giving me credit, and I appreciate that. I mean, but we've got an incredible team of people who have a ton of knowledge. We have an incredible amount of resources. What a lot of people may or may not know. The same people that were building Yamamoto 5 years ago in Page, Arizona, are still the ones building it today. Yeah. They've got, Danny, our main man out there, has got 30 plus years of experience building soft plastic baits. I mean, I can go to him and go, man, I just can't get this to do what I want. And he's like, try this. And I mean, it's such a team effort, and we've got such a good team, a family really. And, but one of the things that we wanted to achieve, and I feel like we just crushed it, we wanted something that was a tighter action, because I believe, and it's not just me, I'm not taking credit for anything, I promise, but input from you, from other guys, that tighter action, I think, is going to give you more play and cooler, clearer water than stupid, crazy wide action.
Yeah.
It's going to be better on pressured fish. It's still got plenty of action and thump and kick where dirty water, it'll still play, right?
Yes.
So it's we feel like we kind of got that certain sweet spot where it's kind of the best of both worlds with action.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, because you could see, like, you're going to have the little thing that's going to hold and give it the action, and then water can kind of go through. Is that how some of that work there?
Yeah, you can kind of really adjust the amount of kick or flap with the kind of, I mean, for lack of a better term, kind of the gap between there.
Yeah.
A more solid ridge or flange or whatever you call it would give it a lot more push. But we kept playing with it to the point where we just got it just where we wanted it. And it's as much technology as we have at our fingertips, it's still hard to beat just taking a bait and throwing it and seeing what it does and putting a GoPro in the water or getting it, man, we've got a guy on our team that's an incredible young fisherman, Jack Dice. He's
Jack Dice.
Man,
the
he's
man.
a hammer. The kid can
He
catch.
is.
But we were out in Page, Arizona at the Holiday Inn Express or Hilton or whatever we were at. And Jack, jumps in the pool with his GoPro and I'm casting it and he's following it around. But man, I mean, we're a bunch of, I love to tell the story about the team we've got internally now is, man, we're a bunch. Wes Higgins, man, that dude's a fisherman from way back. Bill Lewis ran it forever. And man, we're guys that love to fish. And I hope that shows in what we're doing. We're being super aggressive with new products, really pouring into our pro staff for direction. And man, it's a lot of fun. And this bait is just like the byproduct of us just having a lot of fun. So
that is so cool. It is. And I think you're like me, you're like all of us. Like we love that. One of the flaws we have is we come home after fishing or talking to buddies and we still want to get on the phone and talk fishing. And my wife is like, are you still want to talk fishing? Heck yeah, we do, because
absolutely.
We love it. We eat this up. I got a funny story. So last 4 years I've roomed with David Dudley. Well, the first event, he goes, hey, I got this kid and he's going to film with me and I'm going to bring him along. And it was Jack. So I met him earlier this year. He was with David Dudley doing some filming. And Dudley said, I'm not exaggerating. This is the best fisherman I have ever been in the boat with. And when this is all said and done, everybody's going to know Jack Dice. And Jack, if you're listening, Dudley said this. And he'll be in the Hall of Fame bass fishing because he is very smart. So what a great person to have on there, and just another bass geek like all of us that, want to catch more fish.
To piggyback off that story, I met Jack at the Classic, back in February. It was the first one I'd worked with Yamamoto, and this kid, flat bill hat and curly, got the pretty boy flow going on, and he's in the booth with his Yamamoto hoodie, and we get to talking, and this kid walks up and he's like, man, I wish you would start making more YouTube videos, man. I love the stuff you put out. And I just kind of filed that away, and talked to Jack, and he's just the most polite, like super high character. He walks off. So I pull my phone out and find him on YouTube, and the dude's got like a legit YouTube following. And so I get his number and call him up, and we get to talking, and man, he's been with Yamamoto for years. He's gone to like Africa with them. He's gone to Mexico with them. And I mean, I wanted to keep him ingrained because he's got so much history with like that old school Yamamoto that I don't want to lose that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the logo looks a little different. The packages look a little different. We're coming out with some different stuff, but man, I never want to kind of lose sight of where it came from and kind of who brought it, and Jack is, he was going to college at Liberty University. He was on the bass team there. And, I'm fishing all these tournaments. Like his senior, the day that his college graduation happened, he skipped that and went and fished a BFL and walked across the weigh-in stage with his graduation hat on. But the kid is an absolute stud. He's fishing the opens this year. But that's the kind of guy that we want, right? We're not going and finding, well, this kid's got a great, his college resume looks great. He's got these sales, he's got this marketing. Like Jack's got that, but that dude's fishing or thinking about fishing right now. And
oh yeah, it was funny. He said Liberty University, and I'm like, you're a football fan. I'm a football fan. And I'm like, wait, isn't that like the draft is upon us, right? Isn't that where that one quarterback is projected in the first round, that Malik Willis? He's like, hey, we have a football team.
I am a football fan. We can't go down that path. We'll start talking that'll derail this whole thing. I know my weaknesses, Cody. But hey, let's do this. We're about roughly halfway through here. But let's talk real quick, and then we'll open it up to some questions. But let's talk real quick about the new stuff that we launched at ICAST. Man, you've had a chance to fish it all now. You got to use it on tour. I know you've done a bunch of content with, where you just really specifically went and messed with certain stuff. man, no holds barred, not going to hurt my feelings. Man, talk as good or bad as you want to about any of it, but kind of take me through what you think about the new stuff.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So let's start with shad shaped worm. So that thing has been one of my favorites for a long, long time. I remember when Shinfukai kind of invented that thing, came out with it years ago. And I remember hearing about that bait, picking it up, catching a lot of fish. And it wasn't till about a year or two later where we did underwater. So here we are with the underwater thing again. And, you know, I'll use the Yamacraw, but most drop shot baits, they go up and down, however you shake it. That shad shaped worm darts left and right and has incredible action. And I remember sitting on the school at Lake Shasta, throwing a drop shot, you know, popping it around, shaking it like you do, and smoked them. So I've always been a big fan of that. So I love seeing the 3-inch size of that. And then the floater made out of the same material. And I got to give Brene their credit on this. So I'm a huge guy into like Nico rigging, right? Like I've done it for 20 years. West Coast thing. I remember this guy, Bird, came back from Japan, showed me about it. So I've always done that. And I've always kind of relied on that throughout my career. And I saw him do a video, Nico rigging that 5-inch shad shaped worm. And I'm like, oh, dude, that is really, really cool. So I started doing that. That is an incredible bait for the drop shot, of course, you know, like big smallmouth, Great Lake stuff. That was a must have. Nailed it there, you know, rigging that with the straight shank, you know, like owner cover shot hook through the back. You know, guys have done that for years with the fluke style bait. Shad shape has so much more action, and the floater was a must. But then Nico rigging it too. That was so cool. And that's something that definitely be throwing on tour. So those two baits, like I did a vlog with Tackle Warehouse. We caught some 5-pound smallmouth on Lake Ontario, and it was awesome. Those, you nailed it on those two. What else? The Slinko. So that is another one. That is a super versatile bait made out of the same material. So
Right.
5.5-inch bait. It's a little bit wider than the Senko. And the first day we threw it, Jared Littner and I caught a big one, you know, just Texas rigging it. And since then, I've really put it to work. And again, Nico rig, you know, that's kind of one of the hot things right now. But that thing will literally stand straight up. The vibration of that, it reminds me of like the old school zipper worms 20 years ago. That Robert Lee, he won like 3 or 4 Bassmasters on the California Delta. And that was something that, being a West Coast guy, like you love that rib. So when you pull that thing through the water, it displaces so much water that those fish can feel that vibration through their lateral line. And that's one that I thought, okay, this is going to be deadly for that. And it is, trust me. Like the spotted bass that I fished in California, I took that thing to Clear Lake. Really, really cool. Of course, the colors are awesome. We have the 3-inch Zaco. You know, I'm a big, I struggled with this actually. So I'm evergreen, and I've used the jackhammer with the Stealth blade came out, and I'm like, what can I put on as a trailer? Because the 4-inch Zaco is a little too big. So
Yep.
that was perfect for that. But also, I don't know if this vlog came out yet. So I don't know if I want to give it away. But there's some on Tackle Warehouse. Caught some big smallmouth with that, and you'll have to see. But it was we were throwing it on drop shot on the Great Lakes, and it was like the perfect goby imitation, like how that thing came through the water. So
I've had other people kind of tell me the same thing, like in places where there's a little bit of current, that little 3-inch Zaco on a drop shot, it's got just a perfect little side-to-side action, you know?
yeah. And especially in current, put it this way. So I showed up to Mille Lacs for the last BPT event with Major League Fishing. Never seen it. Didn't get to practice. I was at a different event. And the first cast of the day, because I just got off of that trip, was with that bait on a drop shot for smallmouth. So it's really cool. Of course, the Ned Senko, the floater, that was a must. You know, the one thing that makes life so much easier with that is how you rig that bait. So different brands, you know, they're hard to rig and get a hook in that thing straight. I'm like really, I grew up around Aaron Martins and stuff. If that thing isn't like perfectly rigged,
Yeah.
I'll be like tinkering with that. So you can rig that thing perfect, and it's awesome. And then just the new colors too. Like, the Pro Staff is, what about 926? And one of the questions, but the Pro Staff, like if you dive into like Brent Ehrler's mind or Brett Hite or Randy Howell or Brock Mosley, some of these guys, like the knowledge is unbelievable. And so when we're all talking about this, with Jacob Prosnick or whatever, and, like there's hundreds of years of combined knowledge that goes into this. So if a guy's like, hey, I really think
quick question. Do you think Jacob Prosnick likes duck season?
He does. Okay. A large duck season upon him.
Yeah.
Prosnick is the man. Okay. We had so much time, but that dude, what's funny is I always thought Prosnick, like years ago on the FLW tour, and then we'll get back on track here, but he would always be that guy you'd call like 20 minutes in a day, first day of practice. And he's like, dude, I've got 25 bites. And you're like, what? I haven't even got a bite yet. Like I haven't even seen a fish. I don't even know if I'm in that creek with fish. And you're like, dude, he can't be telling the truth. He does. Like that guy figures out stuff so quick. And it's the simplest things like, okay, on this point, throw this bait, bring it uphill next to this log, pause it, and they'll bite it. Or so whatever it is. I just went off on a little roll. But
I was tied up with Jacob in a fog delay on Smith Lake in a Bassmaster Open last year, and we had a big time. We were there for an hour. And one of the things I love about Jacob is as kind of like carefree as he seems, man, he's really sharp and little nuances in baits really matter to him. And he first off, he told me he was going to win, and he did. And
he did.
Yeah. And then come on in, dude. And then number two, we were sitting there just kind of jacking with tackle, and I love talking tackle with Jacob. And I was working for another bait company whom, whatever. But he was like, what would make this bait better? And I'm like, what? And he's like, do this. And I get to looking at it. I'm like, bro, why didn't you tell me that before? But he's that guy. And like, he's that way with Yamamoto too. Like I'll get to showing him prototypes and he's like, no. Change that to this and then try it. And then you try it and you're like, God, he's like Rain Man,
Yeah. Brilliant mind in fishing. And that's the guys that, with you that help design this stuff. So that's cool. And just the colors, like, again, like being a West Coast guy, I grew up in California, then my whole life. I remember in 95 when I bought my first pack of Senkos, and I'm like, how do we throw this thing? And throwing it out and seeing that line take off, I'm like, I'm in love, right? And just the colors have always been so big. And Danny there, like you say, he can make anything happen, like any color. Right. I mean, the stuff's incredible. If you're like, hey, I want this shad, color with bluegill top, he could do it, whatever it might be. And but yeah, I mean, that's the stuff from ICAST. Did I miss anything there? I think maybe the Speed Senko, which the Speed Senko. So yeah, that's another big one.
And then you kind of touched on it, but man, like some of the new colors that we brought out, I thought were just, man, like our Pro Blue in a D Shad or in a Zaco, or I mean, the color consistency and perfection really has always been a Yamamoto thing, and it's so fun to get to play with that. So.
Yes. I just saw a comment. So only missing 926. That is one of the best colors ever created. And it's so funny. Cliff Crochet, we're at a Toyota Texas Bass Classic. And this is at least 10 years ago. And he goes, hey, Cody, what's your favorite color? And I said, 926. And he goes, hey, what's this? He asked Chris Zaldain. And Chris Zaldain said, 021 or whatever. And it's like a West Coast thing where you ask somebody from the West Coast, I don't know why, but it's always been like this. What's your favorite color? And you say the Yamamoto, you reference everything in Yamamoto, like 297, green pumpkin, 021, black and blue. And it was just, we started dying laughing because I'm like, what's your favorite color? Well, black and blue or green pumpkin. But everyone has always referenced the wet, off of Yamamoto.
Yeah, and
And
I've had to kind of learn that, right? I've kind of had to adapt to that from my past because,
yeah,
like, I'm like, man, green pumpkin and everything, and they're like, you mean 297? I'm like,
yeah.
oh yeah, 290. So,
I mean, look at the color lineup that Yamamoto has. And so I'll never forget that. So when something comes on, pumpkin patch color here, 1031, hey, it could be because we go to a lot of pumpkin patches. But when someone references like a color, if it's something that I've seen, usually I remember that. If it pretty much stumped me if it's something, because there is so many colors. But
yeah.
Really cool. I mean, we like to say we got 20 in that, and I'm starting to read some of the questions.
Yeah, they're popping questions up here in front of us now. If you're wondering why we're both looking down here.
Yeah, we're looking down, kind of reading it, getting sidetracked. But yeah, I mean, so the movement, you with Mark's question here, you don't need much movement. Like we talked about this earlier. So other craws, if you're in 50 feet, you're dragging it for smallmouth in the Pacific Northwest there. Other craws, you got to pop pretty good to get that desired action to come up and, to get it to come up and pull enough water and then to come back down to have that action. Like if it was a lighter weight, you could get it popping up, but it might actually pull down and barely kick. So the Yamacraw, I mean, you could barely, I'm talking slowly pull it, just reel up and, do one of these here. And that thing's going to be going. It's going to be kicking. So that's what, in my opinion, really separates this bait from other craws, because those cold water situations, football head, Texas rig, dead sticking or sight fishing, like you want to keep that bait in the strike zone as much as you can, but have that desired action of the craws moving. And this nails it. You can Nico rig it too, Matt. I just saw that. But this bait nails it because with very minimal effort, you're going to have that thing come to life and it's going to be natural. And like you say, you can pull it, it's going to kick, stop, and it's going to come straight up and it's going to look like a crawdad. So I see this thing, Matt just asked if you can Nico rig it. Absolutely. Course Texas rig, you can punch this bait, Texas rig, flip in a bush with the punch skirt, with no punch skirt. You can, jig trailer, swim jig, chatterbait. If you want to, change it up from the Zaco, Carolina rig would be awesome. Free rig, again, it's so natural that this is one of those things that there's really not a wrong way to fish it. You can't put it on a crankbait or something like that, but
I may try it.
You may try it, but this is one of those things you can.
Like a Swiss Army knife, right? Like it's got so many applications. You can. The cool thing, I mean, like I said, we came out with the 4-inch first, and if you want to put it on a small jig, just cut it down, or you want a chunk, just cut it off behind, that little shell section there. And another thing I want to touch on, you kind of pointed this out earlier. One of the things that we wanted to do with this bait that I think we did a great job with is the really anatomically correct features, right? That makes it more lifelike. The more lifelike you can get it in appearance, I don't think you're ever wrong there. And it's got, we literally took a picture of a crawfish.
Yeah.
And like when we were designing it and worked in the little, segmentations in the shell and, the little dimples and the texturing and, man, it's just super happy. I can't wait to start hearing. I see a lot of comments, man. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do that. What I can't wait to hear is people start sending us those messages going, hey, caught my biggest ever spot on this thing. Or I caught, I won my first club tournament of the year with the Yamacraw on the back of a jig. And man, it's going to be a good one. And we got another question here from Tristan Beck who's doing homework and watching this at the same time. You are a better man than I. But have either of you noticed a big difference in the rate of fall with the mega floater formula in this new crawl compared to other crawls on the market? If I can grab that, Cody, if you don't care.
Sure.
predominantly your rate of fall is going to be affected more by the weight of whatever your kind of vehicle is, right? Whether it's like I've got a spot remover on here, or this is a football jig. Your rate of fall is really going to be mostly affected by the weight of whatever you're using that crawl on. Where you're really going to see the difference is if you threw a regular crawl or this into the water with tiny weight or no weight. I think you would really see a difference then. But where you're going to see that mega floater formula really, really come into play is, as we've said a few times, is when you stop this thing, right? Where gravity's really working on that conventional plastic and just kind of pulls it down to the bottom. This one's going exactly the opposite way. And Tristan, I hope that answered your question well enough, but I just don't think you'll find anything that's going to be as lifelike due to the formula as this will be behind a jig or Texas rig or whatever. Yeah, there's a couple questions, a couple people. Every time we do one of these, it's always color questions, man. And like, I've always, man, like you, I've got a great, first time I used the Senko story, or, first time I used a cut tail worm or whatever that is. But every time we do one of these lives, man, it is always about there's 100 questions about color, because Yamamoto has kind of set the bar. There's always been this custom feel to Yamamoto, right? And we don't ever want to lose that. So, I'm going to tell you, what was it, 926 that everybody's asking about?
Yep.
I mean, I'll tell you this: we will do a run of 926s and get them in the marketplace. So easy enough. We're here for you. We're listening, and we obviously somebody. I'll blame that on Jack. Jack made a bad decision, and didn't. we blew his head up earlier. We're gonna let it out a little bit, but
come on, Jack.
Yeah, Jack, what are you thinking? But no, man, that's that's the high points on it, and we're gonna do it in some size extensions going forward. I can't wait to put it on the back of a little finesse jig and go drag that sucker around in smallmouth and spotted bass waters. And hey, there's one more question. We've only got time for a few more. How do they hold up in cold water? Does it affect the action? You want to take that one, Cody?
Yeah, they hold up great, and it doesn't affect the action. I mean, it's gonna be the same. Like you say, the mega floater formula here, like I say, it gets it up. The water where I tested it out, right now it's like 40, 42, and you wouldn't know, like if it's different in warm water or cold water. So it holds up great. I mean, it's something that I've been flipping around in super cold water. Amazing action. Just that, like I shouldn't have done this because it was a good bait, but I wanted to open it up and just see. And like, you don't see some of that salt pour out. And that's what makes that stand up so good. And that is, I mean, this bait for, a different crawl. I mean, dude, this thing is it's awesome with that floating stuff and the floating formula. I don't know what we do. I don't want to know. I just want to fish it and have that thing float. But
hey, let me throw this at you too, Cody. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that it's like crazy this way, but I always want to kind of shoot right down the middle. This formula is more durable than like a Senko formula, right? That salt that makes the Senko special also makes it pretty fragile. But it's a good trade, right?
Yes.
Well, we don't have that in here, so it's not quite as fragile. It's a little more durable, and I don't know, man. I one of the things I've always heard about Yamamoto, well, they tear up easy. Well, some of them do, some of them don't. The ones that do because that's the perfect formula, and it's just a good trade-off,
I remember with Brett Hite when he came out with the Zaco, and first thing you notice is that it doesn't have the salt, that a Senko does. And it's like, if you did that though, you'd be throwing it on a chatterbait and you'd catch a couple fish. Cause when you're throwing that Zaco on there, you catch a lot of bass. I mean, a lot of bass on that thing. But it's just a different formula. And if you just jumped on, like the Senko will never change, because that is why it's one of the greatest baits to ever be invented. And I'm so glad you didn't do that in this, because it would have, like you say, when it came down, it would have hit the bottom. Like you say, gravity would have pulled it down. So this is going to float up. It's going to look natural. And here with Buzz here, with dye, I'm like a big guy at times, chartreuse in it. I've already tried it with Spike It, and it holds great. It, scent like I'm a smelly jelly or whatever it might be, put it on there, and it stays on just like it would with any plastic. And the dye is perfect. You could dye it. It's not gonna, bleed through and drain through the bait. It's going to be the same as any other bait from what I've seen. And the scent's going to be the same. So it's going to be an easy bait to pick up and fall in love with for sure once you guys see it in the water.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. And like I said, man, I'm literally just itching to get in my new boat. So I've got some opportunities to go out and, I've thrown it a bunch. I've caught several fish on it. That's one of the things that I really pride our process on is, man, we're not just kind of like brainstorming and throwing stuff together and hoping that it works. Like, we're not going to bring anything to market that we're not like, yeah, it's the deal. Right. And so I'm really proud of this one. I really, I'm very happy with how it turned out. If we were to do it again, I wouldn't do it any different. So, so with that, man, Cody, you'll tell them one more time where they can get some of these?
Hey, tacklewarehouse.com, just check. They're shipping right now. They're available. I think you just said they're shipping, but hey, sometime next week, you could have this thing at your doorstep and go out there and check it out and see what all the talk is about. Like I said, it's 20 available colors, 4-inch Yamacraw. I know I love this thing. I've seen it for the last several months. Can't wait to get back on tour. This is something that, I'm going to have loaded up in my boat. So tacklewarehouse.com is the place for me. Go check them out, guys. Get on there. You can order them, put them in your cart right now. You're going to have them soon. But what a bait, man. Crispin, you are the man. And thank you for listening to everybody and just putting your input as well. And JT is a stud, man. I don't know if you guys know JT Harden. Just wanted to throw that out there. So
yeah, he is a stud, and we know that JT's a stud. We know that J-Pal is ready for a big duck season, and we've got a lot going on. We thank everybody for tuning in. And hey, when we jump off here, which is like in just a minute, we're gonna end it with a little promo video, so you kind of get to see that thing in action one more time. But hey, I'd be remiss if we didn't end with this. Like, man, what we do, we do it because we're fishermen, and we want you guys to catch fish. We want you guys to look to Yamamoto for the things that you can count on. So, man, message us, hit us up, let us know what you need. We're here for you. We're a bunch of fishermen just trying to make stuff that works. That if we make stuff that catches fish, the rest will take care of itself, right? So,
absolutely.
Cody, man, thanks for being here with us. Thanks for jumping on. We appreciate you. You're a valuable part of our team. And guys, we're going to send you off with a big thanks and a good night. And we're going to roll out of here with a little promo video and get you some Yamacraws and holler at us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, buddy.
The all-new Yamacraw fills a void not only in the Yamamoto lineup, but in the entire fishing industry as well. The most impactful attribute of the Yamacraw, and what really sets it apart, is that it's constructed from our new Mega Floater formula. This is the same formula that we use when creating the popular Ned Senko and hot new Slinko. This formula allows for a soft feel and a bait that floats. This formula allows you to rig the Yamacraw countless ways, and it will stand up when it hits the bottom and mimic the natural defense posture of a crawfish. These same properties also make the Yamacraw the best football jig trailer ever. The claws float and allow you to move the bait at super slow speeds, slower than any other crawl out there, and still get the desired kicking action. Finally, and maybe the most importantly, when you stop your jig, the claws will float up and seal the deal on any fish within eyeshot. Available in 20 fish catching colors and comes 6 per pack in Yamamoto's new clamshell packaging. The all-new Yamacraw is pro-tested, nature-inspired, and fish-approved. To learn more about the new Yamacraw, visit us at Bates.com.